because your children are around this person that is so influential and they're doing the parent alienation, then the children also can see or can pick up on those behaviors and show a lack of empathy as well.
And then what happens, and this is the last part, and this is the warning signs, is your child starts to use the same tone that the narcissistic parent uses toward the targeted parent. So eventually they start acting as if they are also alienating you.
Your blended family has a 100% chance of success when you do it God's way. We're Blended Kingdom Families, and we want to provide biblical resources to heal and restore families with a message of hope for the next generation. Hey guys, we're back again with the Blended Kingdom Families podcast. Woo! We are so excited. Y'all, today we've got some topics that are going to be good.
Man, we're going to be camping out in Psych Central. It's going to be incredible.
Yes.
We're going to be talking about narcissistic parental alienation syndrome.
Wow.
You can't take penicillin for that. It is... We're talking about. I read that and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that is a long title of You Are Jacked Up."
Yeah. Well, hey, but before we dive into this juicy topic, y'all take a minute, hit that subscribe button, join our community. Also, hit the notification bell. That way, you can get notified anytime we have a podcast that comes out on our YouTube channel. We would love, love, love for you guys to be a part of this community, and send it to another blended family who you know needs some encouragement or support in this season.
Well, I read this title, and this is something that we've podcasted on a lot. And we talked about parental alienation. We talked about narcissism. But I was reminded yesterday, I was in a coaching session, and we were talking about a situation that was kind of upcoming. It was kind of an upcoming litigation season for them. And I could see, I was coaching a biological mom and a stepdad. And I could see the stepdad being very like, yes, let's go do this. Mm-hmm. And then you could just see the fear in the biological mom's eyes. And I said to her, I said, what is it that's going on that's making you, this makes such logical sense. Why are you hesitating?
Yeah. And
it's this gripping fear that people have about how their kids are going to treat them, what their ex is going to say about them. Yeah. And it's this fear of, will I be alienated during this maybe pivotal time, or what they think is pivotal?
Yeah.
And what will happen? How will my kids view me? And how will other people, maybe mainly the ex-spouse, create a picture of who they are?
Yeah.
And that's alienation. That's an example of what that is.
Yeah, and we have other podcasts where we've talked about that, parent alienation and child manipulation. And you explain it so well, because you have the target parent and the target child. And then you have the other parent who is really trying to hinder the target parent and target child from having a healthy and cohesive relationship.
Well, and I'll skip to the end for just a second. What it's ultimately doing is damaging your children, and it's driven from this intense ego desire to feel immediate gratification or to feel vindication.
Yeah,
and we see it because we've seen the onslaught of the end result, which is that child, as they become an adult and them starting to understand all these things, it ends up basically, it's like a poison you drink and expect somebody else to die. Yeah.
Well, we talk about that in our book with forgiveness, but I think it applies very much here as well. Well, and so right now on our Let's Therapy podcast, we've been doing a 3-part series on narcissism. And, so if you're listening, go and listen to that so you can just kind of get a foundation for what it is. Okay, so tell us what is the definition for narcissistic parent alienation?
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to give like the gut reaction of the way I would describe that kind of person, because that would not be a nice thing to say on our podcast. But I'll give you the technical definition.
Okay, so what
I want to say is like, give them anyway. It occurs when one parent coercively tries to alienate their child from an otherwise loving parent.
Yeah.
And this manipulation then results in the child's dislike or rejection of that alienated parent.
And just so you guys know, parent alienation is something that a narcissist does. So it's like a form of narcissism.
Yeah.
So if you're dealing with a narcissistic ex-spouse, this is something that they will typically try to do in that parent-child relationship.
Well, and it stems from ego. It stems from the need for power. It stems from the need for validation. And then you're almost in this power dynamic where you're overpowering a child because a child wants to be pleasing to their parent. So they're manipulating them to think, okay.
Yeah. Well, in a narcissist, they have a sense of, it's a overinflated sense of themselves. Now, when it comes to the co-parent, it's an underinflated opinion of the co-parent.
Yeah. And it's basically just give me your allegiance and hate that other person.
Yeah.
So it's not so much as I want to be the best parent, is I want to be the best parent, and I want you to also think that your other parent is the worst parent. And that is the goal. And it's a brainwashing. So it occurs when a parent uses narcissistic tendencies psychologically, and they manipulate the child into thinking about false narratives or about the other parent.
Well, I think one of the tactics, and if you guys aren't following Dr. Les Carter, he is like the narcissism guru.
Yeah.
And we love him, and he was on our podcast. You'll find our previous podcast with him on it where we talk about this. But one of the things that he talks about as far as like tactics that a narcissistic parent will use on a child to perform parent alienation is causing doubt within the child about the other parent.
Yeah. Specifically, they want to make them feel dangerous, unloving, unintelligent, or somehow they're just not good for them.
Right. Right.
And they do that sometimes through direct tactics, but a lot of times it's subtle.
Yeah.
Like they're almost orchestrating a performance behind the scenes of what that child is going to experience and the way that child may look at their other parent. And they can do it, and I'll give you just a kind of a wild example, is they look at it like from a gift perspective. If they say, here's this gift, and your mom or your dad, the other parent, they must not have loved you very much they didn't give you a very good gift.
Yeah, it's the negative talk, and it's also being extremely critical of the other parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it ultimately results in this false narrative.
Yeah.
It's like they're creating a storyline of the reality of events that is just so far from accurate. Yeah. But the child believes it. And it's crazy enough, even the narcissist sometimes believes it. It's like they have in themselves a narcissistic personality, somebody who is narcissistic. They don't have the ability to think in multi-dimensions.
Well, it's a false reality is what it's built. So it's curating a self-thought-out narrative of what the situation is, and it's typically not a true one or an accurate one. I think another thing that they do as well, it's not only does the narcissist shun the other biological parent or co-parent, but they also can do that to the child, especially when the child mentions the other parent. So, if your child is at your narcissistic, co-parent's house, anytime they mention fun or mention, oh, I had so much fun at my other parent's house and we did this, that, the narcissistic parent will not acknowledge it. Yeah. And kids pick up so heavily on our body language, our facial expressions. And so not even acknowledging or celebrating in what the child is excited about, that in itself is another tactic that they use that says, hey, that's not good. Yeah. And we're not going to celebrate that. And you should feel bad for mentioning that.
Yeah. Well, let me give you some other, just some signs, some things that you should be aware of. So one is really an unjustified or irrational campaign to vilify a loving parent. And I want to point this out too. We're really kind of targeting this conversation to, alienation, parent alienation. Yeah. But it can also not just be to the child. It can also be to extended family. It can be to friends. I mean, we live in a world where we have typewriter cowboys where people get on social media and they bash the other parent, and they're so tough behind their keyboard or their phone, and they're creating this narrative where they're just vilifying this person. They're like, this person does this and they did this and they did that, and it turns even like grandparents.
Yeah.
That's another big one that exists there.
Yeah.
And then there's also an extreme I can't talk today for some reason. Cut that out. There's also an extreme idealization of one parent over another. So it's kind of like black or white thinking. I'm the good one. I'm the fun one.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah.
Another one is like we just talked about, it targets the entire other parent's bloodline. So it's not just that parent. It could be their brothers and sisters,
Yeah.
their grandparents, things like that. The denial of guilt or lack of empathy over cruel treatment toward the targeting parent. Wait a second now. I
Yeah.
mean, like
Yeah.
no empathy at all.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's the part that's really confusing if you're in a healthy co-parenting relationship, or like in our case, like, like a loving spouse, you're like, how do you not have empathy for somebody who's being hurt that you once loved?
Well, and I think that can come from the children too. Then, because your children are around this person that is so influential and they're doing the parent alienation, then the children also can see or can pick up on those behaviors and show a lack of empathy as well.
Well, and then what happens, and this is the last part, and this is the warning signs, is your child starts to use the same tone that the narcissistic parent uses toward the targeted parent. So eventually they start acting as if they are also alienating you.
Right.
So then it becomes your worst fear. It's not just the other parent saying bad things or they're doing things that are alienating. It's like, no, my child is now taking on that shape.
Well, and I think that, if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, that's me. Like, I'm the parent that is being alienated. Like, what do I do? You said a big word and you said fear, because it's a lot of parents' fear, especially, as we minister to blended families. This is a big issue that we deal with a lot, especially in our coaching. And I would say, what does the Bible say? And it says perfect love casts out fear. And so it's like, Vanessa, are you telling me to love this person and to even love my child that may be hurting me or things like that? And it's yes, like this is what we are called to do. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to, be friends with them or even be in the same vicinity with them. You can love from a distance. And by that, I mean, be committed to your good character. Be committed to what the Bible and God's word has called us to do. Be approachable, be teachable, be steadfast in your parenting, be grounded, be accountable, be that person that God has created you to be. And with that, when you have that foundation, when you have that foundation of faith and you have that foundation of love, with that is going to come, it's, the fruits of the Spirit. We have all of that. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. People are drawn to the presence of God, and your children will be drawn back to you. If you are in a season where you're experiencing that, you guys, stay faithful to what God is, His word is saying in the Bible and what He is calling you to do. That is the number one thing that you can do. Stay in prayer. Be prayerful over your ex's heart. Be prayerful over your heart, because when you are being attacked and when you feel like your children are being taken from you, let me tell you something. You will say things and you will do things that are not in the character of what Christ has called you to be. And so we want to be very mindful and be very careful over our heart and to not let the enemy get a foothold with any of that. I would also say a more practical thing is stick to your divorce decree. If, narcissists have a great way of wanting to make amends and, do things that benefit them, and love bombing. I mean, all kinds of things. And so the best thing that you can do if you're dealing with a parent that has narcissistic parent alienation syndrome, if you're seeing this go on, stick to your divorce decree, stick to what is best and what is safe at this time. And if you have to seek out legal and professional counsel, go do that. You may need to do that in this season to not only protect yourself and your family, but also your child.
Well, and I also want to point to, if you're in that situation and you're the parent who's been alienated and you're trying to bridge gaps with your children or child, there are steps that you can take. And I want to go through these. Number one is be honest about what's happened.
Yeah.
I think parents tend to try to protect a little bit too much or try to not say things in hopes that kind of the water gets calmer in the years to come. I also believe that kids develop emotional intelligence, and depending upon the age of your children, it can be that good time to say, listen, let me explain to you what's happened, and just be honest about it. So that's step one. I would also say, part of the alienation is, in a lot of ways, they're going to take maybe something small that you did, and that was your fault, maybe in that marriage, and they're going to blow it up. They're going to blow it up. They're going to make it bigger. Or maybe they were just making something that was already big even bigger. So if you've made mistakes, this is when we talk about atonement, when we talk about seeking forgiveness, it is that coming to your child and saying, listen, I just want to tell you I've messed up in these areas, and I take ownership of that. I don't want to blame anybody. This was my doing, and this is what I did. So just being honest and asking for forgiveness. I mean, I think that is a big step in that. And assure your child that you love them and you want to be a part of their life. Children are very impressionable. So they can get their feelings hurt and get a narrative in their mind, and then it's getting echoed and amplified by that parent. And they may think like, hey, they don't love me. So assure that you're loving and affirming your children, and listen to the child and hear their feelings about what's happened. Again, as emotional intelligence connects with children and as that grows, they're going to have thoughts and feelings about what that is. So give them an opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah. And I want to go back to that. I mean, I think you have to be very discerning. Children don't quite understand what's going on or what the other parent might be doing versus like speaking to, a 16, 17, or 18-year-old child. I think, you just have to be very discerning in what you're saying. And again, we don't want to bash the other parent. We don't want to talk negatively about what's going on. You want to present it in a way that, again, you're using discernment, you're being led by the Holy Spirit, but letting your child know, like, hey, what we do at our house may be different than what goes on at your other parent's house, and saying, I want to partner with you in what is going to be the healthiest for you and for our family. And you can approach it from that perspective where you're really getting the child's buy-in. You're letting them have a voice and saying, hey, at this house, we're going to do things this way because we feel that that's what God has called us to do, and that's what's healthiest for our family.
Yeah. If you're listening this far and you're connecting to this, number one is we feel for you. In blended families, we have seen that the true destruction of marriages, of children, that happens post-divorce because of fear, because of anger, because of resentment, because of pride. I mean, we know this, and we know this. All of this attributes to the demise of the family. It just does.
Yeah.
It carries generationally.
Yeah.
When you teach your child that narcissism and narcissistic behaviors are okay, where do you think that goes as they become adults?
Yeah.
You're raising narcissistic children. You're raising future narcissistic husbands and wives. The destruction continues along until you get to the point where you're like, I'm done doing this. And that's when healing starts to occur. And we see this in our coaching. We see this in the people that we interact with through the ministry. We know that there is healing on the other side of this, but steps need to be taken. And I want to put one more practical encouragement out there. Don't be fearful to confront this.
Yeah.
You are not a doormat in your child's life, nor are you just a wallet, nor are you just somebody who just pays child support. You are an active member of your child's future and a predominant influence in their life. So if you're in that situation, don't be a doormat. It's perfectly acceptable to confront this.
Yes, and again, remember what God has called you to in this season. If you're the person that's being attacked, you're like, what do I do? What do I do? Like, ask God. God, what do you say about this? God, what do I do in this? We cannot control what other people say and do. We can't. Yeah. And as attacking as they may be, as degrading and as, hateful as they may be, we can control what we say and do, and we can honor God in that, and we can honor our spouse, and we can honor our family.
Yeah.
And so just remembering that, let that be the forefront of where you are leading every day.
Well, and also I would say, don't be afraid to go to authority. So I was looking, the book that Denny Brewer and I wrote, Back to Court, and I was reading an article about this earlier. Judges hate parent alienation.
Oh, yes.
You want to talk about a way that you can confront narcissism and confront that. Don't be scared to use the legal system. I'm not saying that it should be your first choice, because it is an arduous process. But I know from experience, judges hate parents who alienate.
Yeah.
They want healthy relationships. So don't be afraid to go out and get people to fight for you and to fight against this.
If you need to.
You need to.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Whew. Wow.
Wow, that was a heavy topic.
Yeah. Can't take penicillin for that.
Nope. No
You need
antibiotics for that. You need Jesus for that,
You
y'all.
need Jesus and some good coaching.
Good coaching.
And I would encourage you guys, if you've never looked into BKF coaching, or if you're experiencing some really trauma in your blended family, Vanessa, myself, and we have several other master certified coaches that would love to sit with you, talk with you, work with you through problems. Coaching is very different from counseling.
Yeah.
It's very directive. It's very goal-centered. It enables you to bounce ideas, bounce situations off, and get really practical advice.
No, it's so good. Well, guys, thanks again for joining us. We'd love for you to leave a review on the podcast. Go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. Leave a review. Any positive review helps get the podcast out to more families who need this content. So you guys, please go leave us a positive review. And then also, don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Send it to a friend or family member who is in need of some good encouragement and community. But we love you guys. We hope you have a blessed day, and we'll see you next time.
Guys, take care.
Hey friends, so glad you were here with us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can find more resources from Blended Kingdom Families at blendedkingdomfamilies.com. Join us again next time as we talk about more blended family topics. Be blessed in all that you do, and remember, nothing will be impossible with God.